Isabel pregunta, ¿cuál es el punto desde el cual, a partir del cual, supera uno la frustración de haberlo perdido casi todo? Which is the point of beginning to overcome the frustration of losing everything in your life?
Well, you have one of two choices. Now listen, nothing wrong with feeling frustrated. Nothing wrong with feeling sad. Emotions are not bad. They're the end product of past experiences. And we can remember experiences better because we can remember how we feel. But when you have a reaction to someone or something in your life, there's a refractory period of chemicals that are created. There is an alteration in your chemistry. And if you don't know how to control that refractory period, and you allow it to linger for hours or days, that's called a mood. A mood is one long emotional reaction. If you keep that refractory period going for weeks or months, that's called a temperament. So I say, why are you so frustrated? Well, I lost everything 6 months ago, and I'm living by the same emotional reaction. If you keep that emotional reaction going for years on end, that's called a personality trait. So most people's personalities are defined by the emotions that they memorized. And so you would say, why are you so frustrated? Well, I'm frustrated because I lost everything 9 months ago, or 2 years ago, or 5 years ago. Now, purely from an objective standpoint, what that means is I was altered in some way because I lost everything, and I haven't been able to change for the last 2 years. As a matter of fact, my frustration keeps me connected to my past. Now, shortening the refractory period of your emotional reaction is emotional intelligence. A great thing to teach children. But if a person's going to live in frustration and that is their identity, and then they're going to tell the story of how they lost everything within that emotion, then they're firing and wiring the same circuits in their brain and emotionally conditioning their body to more frustration. And their identity now is connected to the past. Now, they will never create a new future holding on to those emotions of the past. Now, I have had many challenges in my life that have left very strong emotions. I understand them. I'm human. But at what point do you realize that living by frustration is, number one, not loving to you? Because those chemicals push the genetic buttons that will ultimately create a disease, number one. And number two, frustration is causing you to view your life through the lens of frustration, so you're going to look for more things in your life to reaffirm your addiction to frustration. And then you're going to hang out with people that complain and are frustrated too, and you're going to use each other to reaffirm your addiction, and that's called a culture. So then there comes a moment where a person finally says enough, and they say, no more. And they begin to look at how they think. They begin to pay attention to how they're feeling. They begin to become conscious of how they're behaving when they're in that state. And if you're observing those states of mind and body, it means you're no longer the automatic program. You're the consciousness now observing the program, and that's when you begin to objectify your subjective self. You're the observer of the self, which means you're no longer the addiction or the biology, the program that you're rooted in. Every great person in history knew this. We go to movies to watch people overcome insurmountable odds because we secretly believe in our own greatness. So whether I'm talking to a CEO of a company or to a prison inmate or the janitor that's sweeping the floor in a school, everybody secretly believes in their own greatness. And when you realize that that frustration is keeping you anchored to the past, and you realize that there's a whole lot of future for you to create, when you can really reason that in your mind, you'll say, what is this frustration worth to me? And when you begin to break free of it, you will be liberated and new opportunities will come into your life. So again, study the knowledge that shows you that there are future possibilities. Nelson Mandela, he had a whole lot of reasons to hate. He had a whole lot of reasons to be frustrated, had a whole lot of reasons to be judgmental. 27 years in prison, sooner or later he realized, I got to be creative here. You know, first 10 years of his life, he said, I'm never going to get out of here. I'm never going to get out of here. I'm never going to get out of here. And he was creating the emotions of hatred and anger. He's looking outside his prison after 10 years. And he said his heart spoke to him. And all of a sudden, it said, maybe you could get out of here. What if you could get out of here? And he started thinking, how could I get out of here? How could I get out of here? Ask the frontal lobe question. And all of a sudden, the frontal lobe begins to select different networks of neurons and seamlessly piece them together to create a new idea. And he says, I'm going to write letters to the United States on apartheid and anti-apartheid. So every week he writes letters and he sends them to the United States. A few years later, the United States starts answering. And then he says, wow, who's going to lead this nation? Who's going to lead this nation? Who's going to lead this nation? And then all of a sudden he started thinking, maybe I could lead this nation. Maybe I'm the guy that should lead this nation. And as he starts to ask this question, the most important question comes out. How would I have to be to lead a nation? Now this is greatness. And he transmuted his hatred into kindness. He took his judgment and turned it into compassion. He took his bitterness and turned it into unlimited mind. He walks out of that prison 27 years later. He gets to lead a nation. And so we are defined by our adversity. We are literally defined by our adversity. And if you can't take a past experience and transmute that emotion into wisdom, then you will never evolve in one lifetime. So, there are people in the world that have it harder than us, that confront adversity every single day. And if you can't see that your frustration is still keeping you to the past, then you will only create more of the past. When you realize that that frustration can be transmuted into something else, and that you tell the story of your own transformation one day, now you're liberated. And everybody can do that in this world.